Betrayal rarely feels loud at first. It is not always a dramatic scene, not always shouting, not always exposed all at once. Sometimes it begins as a subtle shift, a tone that feels unfamiliar, a message that feels distant, a truth that arrives slowly, and then all at once. And when it finally lands, it does not just hurt. It rearranges something inside you. You question your memory, your judgment, your intuition. You replay moments in your mind, searching for the exact second it changed. Because betrayal is not only about what they did. It is about what you believed. You believed in the safety of the connection, in the stability of the bond, in the version of them you thought you knew. And when that image fractures, it feels personal. It feels like you were naive, too trusting, too open. You may have asked yourself quietly, how did I not see it? Or even more painfully, was I not enough to be chosen honestly? If you felt this, you know the strange silence that follows betrayal. The way the world keeps moving, but something inside you stands still. And yet, there is something about betrayal that people rarely talk about. Something the one who betrayed you often does not expect. Not revenge, not anger, not collapse, but transformation. People who are betrayed often respond in ways that surprise even themselves. At first, there is shock. They often withdraw. They may appear quiet, composed, even numb. You may notice how they replay conversations internally. Without realizing it, they begin reconstructing the story. They search for clarity in fragments. They often blame themselves initially. Maybe they were too sensitive. Maybe they asked for too much. Maybe they missed signs. Because accepting betrayal as intentional can feel unbearable. It is easier to assume responsibility than to accept that someone knowingly crossed a boundary. They may minimize what happened. It wasn't that bad. Maybe I misunderstood. Everyone makes mistakes. But beneath the surface, something deeper is unfolding. A recalibration. When trust breaks, awareness sharpens. They begin noticing patterns they once ignored. Inconsistencies, avoidance, small dismissals that once felt insignificant. Without realizing it, they are integrating a new reality. And the one who betrayed them often assumes something predictable will follow. That the betrayed person will chase, beg for explanations, try to repair what was broken at any cost. Sometimes that happens. But sometimes, something quieter occurs. Distance. Not dramatic. Not announced. Just space. And space changes dynamics. Betrayal does not occur in a vacuum. Often, it touches older wounds. For some, betrayal feels devastating because it confirms a familiar fear. The fear of being replaceable, of not being prioritized, of being chosen only when convenient. If someone grew up in environments where love felt unstable, betrayal feels like repetition. It reactivates old emotional memories. Moments when trust was broken before, promises that were not kept, affection that was withdrawn suddenly. The nervous system remembers, even if the conscious mind does not connect the dots immediately. That is why betrayal can feel disproportionate. It is not just about the present event. It is layered, carrying echoes of childhood confusion, of emotional unpredictability, of learning to scan for subtle changes in tone and energy. When betrayal happens, it validates the hypervigilance. It says, see, you were right to be cautious. But here is what the betrayer often does not anticipate. Betrayal also forces clarity. It strips illusions. It exposes imbalance. It reveals who was investing and who was benefiting. And clarity can be transformative. In adulthood, betrayal often shifts identity. Before betrayal, they may have been accommodating, understanding, willing to overlook small discomforts for the sake of harmony. They may have tolerated inconsistencies, excused dismissiveness, minimized their own unease. But after betrayal, tolerance changes. You may notice that they become more observant, more discerning, not bitter, just aware. They begin to question patterns they once normalized. They may withdraw from dynamics that feel one-sided. They may stop over-explaining themselves. Stop justifying others' behavior. Stop chasing clarity from someone unwilling to provide it. This is often mistaken for coldness. But it is not coldness. It is recalibration. The betrayer may expect emotional chaos, anger, desperation, repeated attempts to restore connection. Instead, they may encounter something quieter, boundaries. And boundaries can feel more final than conflict, because conflict still implies engagement. Boundaries imply distance. There is also an internal conflict during this transformation. Externally, they may appear composed, rational, measured, but internally, waves still move. Grief for the version of the relationship they believed in. Grief for the innocence that trusted fully. They may miss the closeness, even while knowing it was flawed. They may question themselves repeatedly. Am I overreacting? Should I forgive quickly? Am I being too rigid? Part of them longs to return to familiarity, even if familiarity was fragile. Another part recognizes that something fundamental has shifted. Trust, once fractured, does not return unchanged. It either rebuilds differently, or it does not rebuild at all. The betrayer often assumes that time alone will restore equilibrium, that comfort will re-emerge. But what they may not expect is growth. Growth is subtle. It does not announce itself loudly. It happens in small decisions. Choosing not to engage in circular conversations. Choosing not to accept half-truths. Choosing silence instead of pleading. And silence can be powerful, not as punishment, but as self-preservation. Betrayal can create an unexpected shift in power, not through dominance, but through detachment. When someone no longer seeks validation from the one who hurt them, dynamics change. The betrayer may feel the distance, may sense the absence of emotional availability, and that absence can be unsettling, because often, betrayal relies on assumption. The assumption that forgiveness is guaranteed, that attachment is strong enough to override disrespect, that the betrayed person will remain accessible. When that assumption dissolves, the landscape changes. Not because the betrayed person becomes hardened, but because they become clearer. Clarity does not seek revenge. It seeks alignment. It no longer negotiates with inconsistency. It no longer ignores red flags for the sake of comfort. And sometimes, that is the most unexpected outcome. Not collapse, not retaliation, but evolution. You might recognize this shift in yourself. The way your tolerance decreased after being hurt. The way your intuition feels sharper now. The way certain behaviors no longer feel acceptable. At first, it may have felt like loss, like something was taken from you. And in many ways, it was. Trust, simplicity, unquestioned belief. But something was also gained. Discernment, depth, self-respect. The betrayal that once felt like an ending may quietly become a turning point. Not immediately, not without pain, but gradually. The one who betrayed you may not expect this. They may expect your longing, your pursuit, your emotional dependency. But what they may encounter instead is distance anchored in awareness. And awareness changes everything. There is still grief. Growth does not erase pain. It coexists with it. There may still be nights when you question everything. Moments when anger resurfaces. Times when you wish things had unfolded differently. But beneath those waves, something steadier forms. A clearer understanding of your own limits. Of what you will and will not accept. Of the kind of connection you deserve. This is not about superiority. It is not about proving anything. It is about alignment. When betrayal forces you to see clearly, you cannot unsee. You cannot return fully to innocence. And while that may feel heavy, it is also freeing. Because clarity reduces confusion. It removes the need to interpret mixed signals endlessly. It eliminates the internal negotiation between intuition and hope. The deepest shift happens internally. You begin to trust yourself more than you trust appearances. You begin to listen to subtle discomfort. You stop silencing your own doubts. And perhaps most importantly, You recognize that betrayal reflects the betrayer's capacity, not your worth. That realization takes time, because betrayal often feels personal, but it is rarely a measure of your value. It is a reflection of someone else's limitations, their inability to communicate honestly, to remain consistent, to honor the bond fully. Understanding this does not erase hurt, but it reframes it. It moves the center of gravity back to you, back to your perception, your intuition, your boundaries. And that shift is often what they did not expect. They may have expected you to shrink, to question yourself indefinitely, to remain emotionally available despite the fracture. But instead, you begin to expand inward. You take up space internally. You become less negotiable, not unkind, not rigid, just grounded. Betrayal reveals truth, not only about others, but about you. It shows where you tolerated too much, where you ignored your own signals, where you hoped instead of saw. And seeing is powerful. It may feel like something was taken from you, but sometimes what was taken was illusion, and what remains is clarity. Clarity does not scream. It stands quietly. It does not demand apology. It adjusts proximity, and perhaps that is the quiet transformation, the one they did not expect. Not revenge, not collapse, but awareness. You are no longer navigating blindly. You are no longer dismissing your own instincts. You are no longer willing to trade peace for proximity. Betrayal changes you, but not always in the way they anticipate. Sometimes it breaks you open, and through that opening, you see more clearly than ever before. Not about them, but about yourself. And once you see yourself clearly, you cannot return to confusion. You cannot unknow your own worth. You cannot unlearn your own boundaries. And perhaps that is the most unexpected outcome of all. They may have thought betrayal would weaken you, but what it often does, quietly, slowly, is strengthen your alignment. Not louder, not colder, just clearer. And clarity is something that cannot be undone.